Jennie, how come you've ended up at our church?
Because I moved to Lena Valley and I looked for a church that I could walk to because I don't have a car. And so I thought I'll come along, and I've loved it ever since. And I was so glad that you looked at my badge.
Well, let's talk.
Asked me about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the badge. I asked you about West Papua, and it says decolonisation agenda.
Yes.
Why do you wear that badge?
The West Papuans trying to get back on the United Nations Decolonisation Committee agenda, which would be excellent. It would take it out into the international sphere, have all the nations of the world looking at it.
So, Jennie, how did you get started in all this? How did you start caring about West Papua?
Well, I was secretary of the Hobart East Timor Committee, and we set up a West Papua group.
So we probably should start. How did you come to be secretary of the East Timor Committee?
When I was young, I went travelling in Southeast Asia, and the very first place I went outside of Australia, when I was a very shy, ignorant kid, was Portuguese Timor. And I thought, this beautiful little land right next to Australia was so exciting. And I did travel through Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore and Vietnam and other places. But the first place you see outside of Australia is always special.
Yes.
And of course, when Indonesia invaded, I thought, how could they do that to those lovely people? That they had been promised their independence and suddenly it was snatched away from them. And I was living in country Queensland, and so, what to do, write letters and so on. And I wrote to all the members of the United Nations and that sort of thing. And we came down to Hobart and asked around, and people said, I think there's a Hobart East Timor Committee. And I finally found somebody. I didn't know anybody really here. And so I finally got in touch with people, and I said, what's happening? And they said, oh, well, nothing's happening. And so we had a meeting, got the committee up and running again. And so I was secretary for 20 years or so. And then when East Timor became independent, sort of closed that down. But they kept a little group called Friends of East Timor going. But I feel we did some good things, although we were far away from the action. I mean, we went to the United Nations in New York for 14 years running, which was really hard, just to get somebody there to the Decolonisation Committee. And in the beginning, people didn't know where Tasmania was. They thought we were Tanzania. But it was worthwhile because then it got other groups around the world saying, well, if they can do it, so can we. Trying to keep the West Papua group going. And I know people come up and they say, oh, it's a lost cause, forget about it. And I say to them, but nothing's a lost cause. People said East Timor was a lost cause, but it wasn't. It got there. I mean, it paid a huge price. Damaged the society, 300,000 people died. But now it's an independent country, and West Papua can be the same. I would like to see, all the Melanesian societies come together in maybe some sort of federation, because they all share, culture, backgrounds and things. But it is hard, but I think the more people who care about it, faith moves mountains.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So I usually go out with my petition whenever I've got a bit of spare time in town. I take out my petition and I hand out leaflets and and I give people stickers if they would like for their cars. That's the sticker that shows the Morning Star flag, which you're not allowed to raise in West Papua. You can end up in prison if you raise the West Papuan flag, the Morning Star flag.
So are you kind of leading the charge here in Hobart now?
Well, that makes it sound very grand. But I just think it's so important. And sometimes young people come up to me and they say, oh, we'll start something at uni. And so I give them leaflets and say, you know, ring me up if I can help or anything. And then I don't hear anymore, so I don't know whether they're just busy or other things get in the way. Sometimes people say, oh yes, I've got a Facebook page and I put up things about West Papua, which is, I say, oh that's great, you know, the more people who are doing things, the better. So I have a mailing list of about 25 people who like to be kept in touch. But it would be lovely to have some young people doing things, because sometimes you think, oh, you know, I'm not going to be around forever.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just sort of run out of oomph, but I just feel it's something that's so important. Yes. And I feel that it's one of the things that God wants me to do, so I keep going even when my legs get tired. Yes.
Well, we know our job as your church is to support you in what God calls you to do. So it's encouraging just to hear the clarity and hear the story, things I didn't know about.
Yes.
But I know that our task is to support you in it and to work out how do we work together. Because
yes.
this is clearly an issue of justice, isn't it?
Exactly.